Welcome to our mathematics lesson. We are going to learn about numbers. My name is Mr. Wafula. I hope you are going to have a very nice lesson. So we are going to look at numbers. That is our strand. Under that, we are going to narrow down and look at rounding off numbers to the nearest tens. Rounding off numbers to the nearest tens. In this case, I'm going to subject us to an activity which we are going to carry it out as a group. So, we are going to pick a number. For example, look at this number. Our number that we have picked, that we are going to carry out an activity of rounding it off to the nearest tens is 63. So, step number one, we are going to have a number line in which we are going to represent this number on a number line. Just observe. Here is a number line where I have written from number 60 up to number 70. Our number which we have picked here is 63. That is our number, 63. We want to round it off. That is step number one. We have drawn a number line. So wherever you are, do the same activity with me. We draw a number line. That is step number one. Then from there, we identify our number. I have listed numbers from number 60 up to 70. I have identified our number, which we are beginning with. This is number 63. Here is our number. I have shown it on the number line. Now, the next step, we are going to count the intervals from the number which we have identified. Our number is, of course, 63. We are counting the intervals from the number up to number 60. Just observe. Our number 63, when we count the intervals from 63 up to number 60, we have three intervals. We have from number 63, 1, that is the interval is the space in between number 63 and the next number moving behind. Of course, in this case, we have 1, 2, and 3. Therefore, we have three intervals from the number which you have identified up to number 60. Step number 3, we count the intervals again from the number which you identified up to number 70. In this case, just follow up with me. What can you see, learners? I have counted the intervals from number 63 going forward up to all the way to number 70. I have found that there are 70 intervals. So, having found 70 intervals on the right side and 3 intervals on the left side, from our number which you identified, we are going to consider, because we are going to count. Now in this case, we are going to count how many numbers from number 60, that is from the number 63 up to number 60. We have 3 intervals or 3 spaces. Then from number 63, our number of course in this case, up to number 70, we have 7 intervals. To round off this number now, we are going to consider the side with few intervals. In this case, we are going to ask ourselves this question. The distance from number 63 up to number 70 is bigger than the distance from 63 up to number 60. Therefore, 63 is nearer to 60 than to 70. Again, 63 is nearer to 60 than to 70. We therefore conclude that if we have to round off 63 to the nearest tens, we look at 63, it is nearer to 60. Therefore, the answer will be 60. It is nearer to 60 than to 70. Just to do a different example that I'm going to give you. Consider this. This is our example number 2. Round off 57 to the nearest tens. 57 to the nearest tens. Again, we are going to do this activity that we have just done here. Step number 1. Step number 1. I have said draw a number line. Draw a number line. Be very careful because I'm going to pose few questions that will be expected to respond. Draw a number line. Look at mine. On the same number line, indicate, here we have 57. Now begin from 50 up to 60. Observe as you also do it, because you are going to share the results. Here is my number line under step 1, because it's an activity that we are doing it all together. We have 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, and then 60. Our number here that we are rounding off on our question is number 57. It is here on our number line. Following the same steps that we have done in the group activity 1. Step number 2, here, we are going to count the intervals. Do it as I guide you in counting the intervals. Right away from number 57, coming behind. From number 57, coming behind. We have, here is our number 57. We have 7 intervals from our number 57 up to number 50, we have 7 intervals. Then we go back, that is step number 2. Count. We have counted the intervals from number 57 up to number 50. We have 7 intervals. Step number 3. Step number 3, we now again count the intervals from our number 57 up to number 60. We count together. According to mine here, I have got 3 intervals. So the numbers from number 57 up number 60, we have 3 numbers. We have 3 intervals. So this one, share what you have found out according to what you are doing down there. With your friend, you will discover that number 57 is nearer to 60 than to 50, because the distance from 50 up to 57, which is our number, is bigger than the distance between 57 up to 60. So what do we conclude? We conclude that 57 is nearer to 60 than to 50. So to round off, so 57, we now conclude that it is nearer to 60 than to 50. So our answer is 57 rounded off to the nearest tens. It changes to 60 because it is nearer to 60 than to 50. Now, learners, the last example that we are going to do, the last example, and I'm going to give an exercise for us to do the practice. The last example, we are going to attempt this. We want to round off 983 to the nearest tens. 983 to the nearest tens. Again, I said step number 1 in our first group activity was start with a number line. Start with a number line. And in this case, step number 1 is, that one is my number line. I am going to write these numbers from, here we have 983. I'm going to write from 980 up to 990. Right? Our number is 983. I have drawn a number line in which I have indicated several numbers right away from 980 up to 990. Now we have to be careful here. We have to identify, because on the first step that we have done in our activity here, we have to identify now our number which we are going to round it off to the nearest tens. Our number here is 983. Right? Where is our number? It is here. That is where our number is. Step number 2, we are going to count the intervals from our number 903 going backwards up to 980. Again, we are going to count the intervals from 983 going forward to 990. Right? Now, our number is here on the number line. Let's count. Let's count. From our number 983, we are counting backwards up to 980. How many intervals are there? There are 3. Very good. Step number 3, we again count the intervals from 983, which is our number, up to 990. We go. We count with me. How many do we find? They are 7 intervals. So, the distance from our number 983 to 990, we find the distance is larger. We have 7 intervals as compared to from our number up to 980. Therefore, we consider the shorter distance. The shorter distance which has the fewer intervals. The shorter distance has the fewer intervals. Therefore, 983 is nearer to 980 than 990. Therefore, 983 rounded off to the nearest tens becomes 980. Why? It is nearer 980 than 990. Right? Attempt the following questions, learners. Attempt the following questions. Question number 1. Round off (94) to the nearest tens. That is question number 1. I want you to attempt that. Do it as I give you another question. Question number 2 on our exercise. Mweke measured the length of a wire as 87 meters. Mweke measured the length of a wire as 87 meters. What is the length? The first question is round off 94 to the nearest tens. That is the first question on our exercise. Question number 2. Question number 2. Mweke measured the length of a wire as 87 meters. What is this length of the wire to the nearest tens? What is the length of this wire to the nearest tens? The last question on this exercise that I want us to attempt. Number 3. If you are very keen, you have already gotten the answer to the first problem. Of course, in mathematics, to solve problems, not questions. You have already got the answer to the first problem. The second problem is Mweke measured the length of a wire as 87 meters. What is the length of the wire to the nearest tens? The last problem. A tank contains 598 liters of water. How much water? How much water? I'll repeat reading the question. A tank holds 598 liters of water. How much liters of water to the nearest 10 liters are in the tank? The procedure of working out these problems is the same like in the group activities that we did. Remember, these are questions. Round off to the nearest tens. Question number 2. Mweke measured the length of the wire as 87 meters. What is the length of the wire to the nearest tens? Question mark. The last problem was, for those who may have not heard the question, a tank contains 598 liters of water. What is, or rather, how much water to the nearest 10 liters are in the tank? Question mark. Attempt those questions and all shall be well. Follow the same procedure that I have just showed you in the group activity. Otherwise, I have had a good lesson. I enjoyed having you. Have a good day. Stay safe.